Hi, thanks for joining us on this week's Mindset. My name is Daniel. Today I have Toby Doyle joining us here. Toby is the Interim VP of Business Development here at SetSchedule. I've had the pleasure of actually working hand in hand with Toby over this last year, working with him in South Africa as well as building the Dallas office. Toby, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me, Danny. Looking forward to it.
So you're stationed out there in Dallas right now, is that correct?
That is correct, yes.
How's the weather there?
Not bad, not bad. It's a high 60s, low 70s. I can't complain. Not as nice as sunny California, but it's not bad.
Yeah, not as right. Not as nice as sunny California, but I'll be seeing you in a couple of days. I'm gonna be flying out there as well for to get back on training and all that. But thanks for joining us today, and yeah, let's get started.
Looking forward to it. Let's go.
So what have you learned over the last couple of I guess year? Well, let's start with how long you've been with SetSchedule.
Yeah, I've been with the company for going on almost 2 years now, Danny. We started back it was about February, I believe, of 2020.
So we are getting up right before COVID. So we're getting into the 23, 24 months almost. Cool. So what has been the journey for you? I mean, you came in as an inside sales rep, and how'd that go?
Yeah, it went great. Started out with inside sales rep. Actually ended up on the first remote team. Was able to achieve success pretty quickly. Grew pretty fast with that. Was offered a position down the road to go and start to develop the team over in South Africa. And that was a great experience. Learned a lot. Like I said, how much I learned in this period, a lot. Learned that establishing a new team in a different country can be a bit of a challenge, but also a challenge that can be won. And I think we did that over in South Africa. Absolutely.
That's awesome. So I definitely want to get to talking about South Africa because that's an exciting topic, I think, on both of our sides. But one thing I kind of wanted to touch base on before we get to that was really talking about sales. And obviously, you've probably spoken to thousands, if not tens of thousands of agents that have come and go and learned about the SetSchedule platform. And do you have any advice out there for agents that are possibly thinking about or have spoken to maybe a territory manager here at SetSchedule and they don't quite yet grasp the full extent of the tech?
Yeah, in referring to an agent that's considering, or more of one of the an agent that would want to come with us. As far as the tech, it is top notch. It gives them the ability to just pick and choose the leads that they want, and also a constant flow of new leads coming into a territory. Not to mention all of the other aspects that we do offer. Coming from the research center to the way our referral system works with the center points as opposed to the traditional zip codes. There's just a number of things that our platform offers to an agent that allows them to grow their business very rapidly.
Awesome. So over the years that you've spoken to agents, what are been the key identifying characteristics or factors that you think differentiate your top 10% from your bottom 90%?
It really just comes down to a lot of it is mindset, going back to our mindset and also having systems in place. It's a mindset of diving in and actually working the prospects and doing their follow-up and doing their due diligence and having the systems in place and using our systems that we already have in place to assist them with that, I think is one of the key factors to the agents that do well and the ones that heed a little bit of our advice from our consultants that we do offer them. It gives them a big advantage to work with those prospects and nurture them along. These are still real estate internet leads that they do work with, with our platform, and they do require a little bit more nurturing, but we do give them all of the support to do that. And the ones that take advantage of it and support those prospects, those are the ones that we see converting those into transactions.
That's awesome. What I think is really interesting about your story is similar to mine. We kind of started from the intro position, level 1 position, and worked our way up, right? You went from inside sales, you went to managing a team, and now obviously you're going from managing a singular team to managing multiple, getting close to almost managing what now? I guess you've got about 30 or so, 35 almost, territory.
35 under, yeah, exactly.
So how do you think that translates to the story of a successful real estate agent? I'm a brand new agent. I come into the real estate space. I'm building my business. I'm building my book of possible prospects, and I'm buying and selling homes with all my prospects. And now I want to take it to the next level. You talked about mindset. You talked about tools. What kind of mindset do you have to have in order to go from an individual entrepreneur to now a team lead who's going to be maybe managing 5, 10, 15, ultimately 50 agents?
It really comes down to a drive. For me, a little bit in my history, I had my own business prior to doing this, and I just carried that over into what I did as a internal sales rep. It was more about just having the work ethic and the drive to do it on a regimented scale, putting in my own systems in place so that I make sure that I manage my accounts properly, and then being able to continuously do that day in day out to ensure that I always have a consistent flow of new prospects coming in, and that's what we train. Working with the team in South Africa and working with the team here in Dallas, it is just getting them more regimented, and it is a mindset, it's a work ethic, and I take every day with the approach of what I call, when I talk with my team, I call it you're coming in with that game face on. And what I mean by that when I talk with my team, a game face is basically anybody that's played in any kind of a sporting event or going into any type of a challenge. If you come in with the mindset that there's no way I'm going to lose here, I'm gonna give it everything I got, and I'm going to win. If you come in with that game face on every day, every time that you pick up the phone or whatever it is, it usually translates into success. You're going to lose some, but generally, if you have that mindset, you will win inevitably. And that's pretty much what I try to train, and that's what I believe in, and that's what I show up to work with every day.
Mindset. Along with mindset, again, you spoke about tools. How do your tools grow with you? I mean, again, I'm sure the tools that you were using in the business that you had prior to this, the tools that you were using as maybe a team of 1, 2, 3, or 4 changes when you kind of grow from small to medium to large. How do you start to identify, different factors that you have to introduce to your team and what those factors are?
It's really identifying friction points, Danny. Obviously, as technology grows and changes, we always are going to run into different friction points. And that happened in my business. It happened even when I was an ISR. And SetSchedule did a great job of altering and changing and moving along and progressing and bettering our systems internally. And I think that goes with any business, is making sure that you're always staying in the latest and greatest in the technology world, so that you can provide your clients the best, and also making sure that you're keeping a steady stream of new business coming in and staying in good contact with them and doing your follow-ups. And that really stems from having the right technology in place to accommodate that.
So I love that, because we're very big ourselves on CRM, right? Internally, we push CRM. Internally, CRM hygiene is a very important aspect. We actually have once a week, right? We have our boiler room CRM meeting with all the management, and we push it hard as far as what it takes. Have you seen the difference in a team that manages and utilizes a CRM versus one that might not manage or utilize a CRM? And what do you think is the difference between the two, other than the tech itself?
100%. Anybody that's going to utilize a CRM, and they do it properly, there's different ways to utilize a CRM. Some do it, if they aren't doing it to its fullest, they're really missing out on the notifications, the reminders, making sure that everything is in place. And it also with certain systems, I know with our system, it does allow to reach out to different people on a consistent basis and allow them to manage that reach out. So when they're using it properly, the ones that do and do it consistently, they're usually in the top sales of our teams. I tried to manage it and do it the best I could, and it did help me tremendously and allowed me to achieve a pretty high level of success as an ISR as well.
So what do you consider proper use of a CRM system?
You are doing all of your updates, because I think that's one of the things that whether it be us or even agents that I talk to, is updating it on a frequent basis. If you miss on your updates and putting in your appointments, making sure you're checking your calendars in there, all of the things that the CRM is there for. If you aren't doing that, and what I mean by properly is if you're missing on those things, if you're not doing it consistently, you're going to miss potential business. You're going to miss that opportunity that could have been a phenomenal opportunity. We had a situation where one of our reps didn't do a follow-up, and we missed out on a really good opportunity that had they just done a follow-up, and that prospect went elsewhere because they didn't do the follow-up and had already put money out for another platform. But they would have been happy to move forward with our system, but we didn't do our due diligence and our follow-up. So it is critical that we utilize the CRM and, to its most capacity. And whether that's in our industry, or I think in any industry, coming from where I came from before, if you don't have some kind of a system in place, it is a major struggle. I'm a little bit on the older side. If you can't tell, I got a little bit of a white beard here,
You
but
and I both,
you know,
Toby. You and I both.
days of Rolodex and having a written booklet in that. I don't even know how I did it back in those days, with how easy these systems make it for me now to be able to just look at a calendar and instantly have everything there in front of me with reminders of follow-up, already templates for emails to send out to those different prospects. It makes my life so much easier. And, it's getting our teams to understand that this is a tool for you to use to better your success within the company. And as long as they do that, they do see a pretty high level of success. It's the challenge is getting them to do it on a regimented schedule, as opposed to just when they feel like using it.
Fair enough. So for me, I think that goes back to the mindset and the discipline that you talked about. It's so incredibly important, making sure that on a daily basis, if not 2, 3, 4 times a day, even if it's for 2 or 3 minutes each time, you are on your CRM. If you have the app, you could grab an app and on the go CRM system, and that's why I love our CRM system and the CRM system that we developed it, because it is based on a mobile app. We developed it for the on the go type of sales rep agents. You've got your update, you update right away, and you move on to the next. So
yeah.
Cool.
And that's the great feedback. We get a lot of good feedback on that as well, Danny. Just the ease of use. I hear that all the time from the agents that I speak with.
That's awesome. So let's kind of, I want to spend a little bit of time talking about your development from going from your inside sales rep, your standard inside sales rep, to management, and ultimately into VP, and then kind of going to a completely different country, right? I mean, we're so used to the U.S. and I think we were at a perfect position. Unfortunately, when COVID came, we were at a really good position where we kind of had to we were forced to send a lot of the team remote, whether we wanted to or not. Do you remember the transition? Were you there with the transition, or were you just straight remote from the get-go?
I was straight remote, but I was there during the period when we did have to funnel the team and have the team working on a remote schedule. I mean, everybody pretty much had to go remote. That was just part of the policies and procedures.
Mandates, yeah.
It was a challenge for some of the leadership at the office. Fortunately for me, I'd already been established working remote. So, and again, it is a mindset. It is having that discipline to work remotely. Not everybody has that, unfortunately.
Right.
And I think that is where the challenges do come into play when you are having people work remotely, and we still deal with that those challenges. If we have somebody working remotely, the monitoring has to come in a lot more effectively, because quite frankly, a lot of people don't have that discipline, and when they're working from home, they tend to not stick with the program and do the things that they're supposed to be doing as much as they should be.
So let's talk a little bit about the journey of you going to South Africa and opening up the office. I mean, we opened up the office in the beginning of the year, right? It was around January time where we went to South Africa and we started an office together. And really, we started with nothing and nobody, right? We came in, had a group of 5 or 6 trainees, and from there we just said, hey, let's make it happen, right? How was that for you? I mean, how do you build the kind of the courage is not the right word, but build that commitment to going to South Africa and starting an office and knowing that long term you're actually not even going to be there, right? You're not going to be able to manage a team in South Africa. You in a sense are going to become a remote manager when you know that you're going to have a team established. How do you even start?
I think it all kind of stems from one, setting a culture. We have to establish a culture right away, and then be on the lookout for somebody that is going to be able to allow us to grow organically. And I'm referring to management. Finding the right people to put in place as we grow the team. We need to make sure that we do have the proper people there that can do that while we are not on the floor, in essence, in South Africa. And we knew that was going to be one of our bigger challenges for organic growth and allowing it to move in that direction. And the culture that I really came in with the mindset was, look, one, we need to make sure that they understand how we do things in the U.S. It's a little bit of a different culture in South Africa. It's a different mindset. So right out of the gate, I think the first thing that I did when I got there was to establish, look, this is the mindset that we have to have, and it's the approach that we have to have moving forward. It's a lot of activity. It's a lot of again, a lot of times when you're working with people that, especially in South Africa, where they're dealing with people in the United States, and to a certain extent, there's a little bit of they hold it on a little bit of a pedestal, and to get them out of that mind frame that these are just people. It's just a matter of just talking with people on a normal level. And I think that once they got past that and realized that these are just normal people, and all we need to do is just have a conversation and share with them what our product does. It's really more just sharing what our product does for them. And that's really what I came up with the idea in the very beginning is this is what we need to establish, and then kind of train them more on the geographical and the cultural differences over in the U.S. as compared to what they have in South Africa, so that coming into this, they have a little bit of a better understanding of what they're going to be doing for us.
So you go into South Africa. Did you have a team set up? Did you kind of have an idea of what was already established in that region?
So I mean, going out there, you'd already established a base for us. We had a fair amount of people in place. There was already some managers in line to take that role. So, coming into it, it was really more about just assessment, really assessing, who is going to fill what role, and then really working with each individual's talent. And they're different because everybody's a little bit different. I think one of the challenges over there was really working with the individual and trying to figure out what is it that they need the most to allow them to succeed. And, we worked very diligently and hard to get them up to speed to the point where they are at the same level of anybody here in the U.S. and are able to do the exact same things that we're doing here. Fortunately for us, we were able to get them up to speed very, very quickly. And they've been a thriving team over there.
So for me, I think that's possibly one of your biggest strengths. And why I love working with you so much is your ability to come into a scenario, not only assess, but to figure out the situation and start to establish and implement strategies. And one of the strategies that you implement is rolling up my sleeves and getting down and dirty with the team, right? And we've talked about the difference between leadership and management quite a bit. And for me, I think that's the biggest differentiating factor is leadership is not afraid to get down and be there with the troops and be there on the front line. And you take the time to really understand and listen to the team. So what do you think, what kind of characteristics would make a good leader and would make someone who could possibly manage a team of 5, 10, or 20, sales individuals?
I think that, what I look for when it comes to, the next line down as far as managing the teams that we currently have is really looking for those key elements that you just kind of mentioned, is not being afraid to roll up their sleeves and get involved and take the time to listen to what they say, nurture them along, and being able to recognize the problem points that they're running into. I think that's one thing.
Interrupt you. You said nurturing because we love that word, right? Nurturing is a big word that we use. Nurturing can mean many different things. Nurturing your leads, nurturing your team, right? But if you could break down nurturing into X number of steps, how would you break that down when it comes to manager to salesman relationship?
Is recognizing, and when I say nurture, it's bringing them along. It's a process. When you have a new trainee that's coming in, they're coming into things very raw. They're coming into things without really any understanding of what it is that they're about ready to get into. So they are going to hit problem points throughout the process of growing into what we consider like a seasoned type of a sales rep. So recognizing those friction points very quickly, making adjustments so that they can achieve a high level of success as a sales rep. Some are going to do it at a much quicker pace than others. Some are going to, take their time. Some of them have challenges that require different types of nurturing. And that can mean from when they're presenting a product to somebody, sometimes they speak way too fast. It's something as simple as, hey, slow down. Sometimes it might be they're overselling a product that doesn't need to be sold. It's something that already, it's a product that in essence sells itself. And it's getting them educated that you don't need to be a salesman. It's really just educating an agent as to what the product does. And, if anything, get them used to selling them on yourself. Show them that, that, look, this is why I think it is a good product for you. And I think in essence, when you take that approach and you're really looking at it as I'm here to help you, meaning for my sales reps, I want them to take the approach of I'm here to help the agent. And when they take that approach, generally it lends itself to an agent being a lot more comfortable with joining our platform when they feel that, hey, look, this will help me. And I think that that's really what I try to do, but we're always going to have friction points with sales reps through that progression period when they're trying to figure out, and that might be from the very get-go, of the initially reaching out, just setting appointments. Some agents are really going to struggle with it. Some reps are going to really struggle with just setting appointments. And I'm sure that real estate agents run into that same issue. It is a numbers game sometimes out there. Whether that be in the real estate industry for a real estate agent to reach out to these prospects, or whether it's on our end, reaching out to real estate agents. Not every one of them are wanting to hear what we have to say. So, and I'm sure that goes for real estate agents of a numbers game. And the more that every no will lead to a yes. And that's one of the things that I share with my team is that, hey, look, don't get discouraged. You're going to get more no's than you're going to get yeses. That's inevitable. But the more activity you have, the more that you're reaching out and getting yourself involved and doing follow-up, even though that person may have said no today, this may still, if especially if you recognize that this is a good platform for them, this will help them. Maybe, they're not in a position right now, or maybe that's not a good fit for them at this time. But if we keep following up with them, and that's where the CRM comes into play again, Danny, is just, follow up with them in every couple of weeks or whatever that may be to accommodate that in the case for an agent reaching out to a prospect, or for us reaching out to a real estate agent, those are the ones that you don't want to let go of, because eventually you're going to get some of them that are going to come back and go, you know what, yeah, this sounds like a great fit. Let's go ahead and move forward. I'm in a much better position now. And I think that kind of goes in hand with what happens with agents out there. And really, the nice thing about our sales reps here is they can put themselves in the same position as an agent in what they go through, because they go through pretty much the same thing. It's still a matter of being able to understand that, hey, not every new lead or every new prospect out there is going to say, hey, yeah, this is wonderful, and know that you're going to get a lot of those no's, and then being able to work through that and be diligent enough to stick with it and know that inevitably they're going to start to come around. And I think that that's one of the things that for my team, it helps them with that kind of a mindset.
So you're in Dallas now. You're not with us here in Southern California as I look.
How's the weather there right now?
It's not bad today, so not too bad. I'll take it.
Fair enough. That's always it's always nice there in Dallas with the sun. And the humidity is a little different though. But
that's true.
So what were the differences and you felt that maybe when you started the Dallas office versus the South Africa office? I mean, one, obviously we had a little bit of we had a lot of experience at that point, right? Having started a brand new office, but what do you think were some of the differences that allowed us to really take the Dallas office and make sure that when we did start with it, we pretty much exploded from the get-go?
Yeah. I mean, it was some of the experience that was gained from South Africa, making sure that we do recognize those friction points quickly, which it took a little bit in the beginning in South Africa to identify that. Obviously, the friction points are going to be a little bit different in South Africa than they are here in Dallas.
Right.
Speech, and there's a number of things that are a little bit different than what we deal with here in Dallas, but it's recognize those differences. And one of the things that we did run into here in Dallas initially was just getting people not afraid to make some cold calls, to reach out to some agents. And I think that taking them out of their comfort zone, where in South Africa that wasn't nearly as much of the case as it was here. I think they were a little bit more inept to do that, where here it is getting them a little bit more accustomed. So we've adjusted a little bit to the approach, and I think that that's boded well for us. But really here in Dallas, them already understanding the culture, understanding the real estate market, understanding real estate agents, it now again it's just instilling the right mindset. And if they stick with the regimented platform that we've kind of laid out for them, we can always make adjustments and changes to how they're presenting the product, or or how they're going through their different skill sets and that. But you can't teach work ethic, and you can't teach keeping things regimented. And the nurturing along does seem to be a little bit faster here in Dallas.
So in today's day and age, now with COVID, obviously, we have entire companies that are going remote. How do you, as a manager who's responsible for 30, sales reps, how do you even manage remote management? I mean, what kind of skills and what do you have to evolve into to be able to take a team of 30 that you're normally sitting on top of, and you could be there and hands-on and sit down and have your meeting impromptu? How do you go from that to, heck, I'm not anywhere near you, but the same production, same KPIs, everything is still expected from you?
Good question. And one of the things is really just having really good communication lines with your down chain, with your managers that you have on the floor that are doing all of that dirty work for you at this point, and to be in constant communication. Also, I am a big believer in team meetings. Usually the team meetings are early before the day really gets going to again align the mindset, because it's very easy to let things kind of creep into whether that's in your own personal life, or whether it's distractions at the office, or whatever it may be. So having a morning meeting with a team, it really does, it aligns a mindset going into the day that, and generally it allows them to kind of get refocused and get set on what their tasks are for the day. So I really like to have a morning meeting with them, but really, and that can all be done through Zoom. And that's the beauty of Zoom now. I mean, or whether that's Google Meet, Zoom, but just being able to communicate on that level. But a lot of it is just having that communication with your downline, with your managers, and making sure that they're doing all the things that they need to do to make sure that they're nurturing everybody along properly. Still being able to have the right systems in place. I mean, fortunately enough for us with SetSchedule, it does give us the ability to listen into calls and being able to monitor, so I can still remotely listen in and assess how things are going with a particular sales rep or with a manager, and see where adjustments need to be made, because there's always going to be adjustments. There's always going to be different things that need to be put into play, and that can mean that you can sense a quick bad habit that needs to be fixed, or it could be something that's a little bit more detrimental that needs to be really reevaluated and adjusted. So again, having the right systems in line, but also having good lines of communication with your team is critical to allow them to, not only maintain, but to flourish and grow. And I think that that's something that we do fairly well.
Yeah, I mean, I find it really important to be able to listen to calls. As a manager, you want to, whether you're a micromanager or you're not, you're more of a macro manager, being able to listen into calls and being able to pick words, right? One of the things that we train on are good words versus bad words, right? Don't use price, don't use don't use sign and all these small little things that could take someone who's right on the edge and turn them away. So how often do you listen to calls? I mean, are you listening to a call per sales rep every day, or how does that work?
Another good question. I'd say that I'm listening in periodically throughout the day. Depending upon who it is, who's been having struggles, who isn't. Generally I'll listen to the ones that are struggling more than the ones that haven't been struggling, just to try to pick up on what it is that they may be struggling with, so that we can provide some kind of assistance to get them to where they need to be as a sales rep. And that goes for managers as well. Being able to assess where a manager might be falling a little bit short is another important factor, almost even a more important factor, because you want to make sure that your management is doing what they need to do to support the team. And if they're falling short, that could really be a detriment to the team. So you really want to make sure that you're not only monitoring your team, but the managers as well. And then being able to pick up on wherever it is that they're falling off and get them up to speed as quickly as possible. And that's for me, that's one of the key elements. So I'm on the phone pretty much all day long, listening in to my different teams.
So how do you decide who to spend time with?
A lot of it has to do with, again, communication. I rely on my down chain managers to share with me who is struggling. Looking at KPIs, looking at the key performance indicators is really one of the main ways we can monitor, who is falling short. We have our main ones, which consists of talk time, how many appointments are set, how many demonstrations are being done, how many people are actually showing up for the demonstrations, And then obviously, the sales numbers is a key factor as well. But wherever we're seeing somebody falling short in those different categories, it's time to assess. It's time to look and maybe listen in or figure out what is it that they're doing that isn't allowing them to meet the standard or exceed the standard, and assist them to get there. And I think that it requires, to be a good manager, or in my case, to be able to manage the managers, is to be able to determine where those friction points are and stay on top of it. You cannot let that go, you can't let it go more than a day, let alone even half a day. You have to be monitoring that. We have reports that come out to us 3-4 times a day with everybody's KPIs, and it's being able to monitor that and address the situation as quickly as possible when we notice that there is a drop off.
Yeah, I'm really glad that you brought up the KPIs, because that's one element that I think that a lot of management, I don't want to say fails, but doesn't recognize the importance of monitoring. I mean, like you said, KPI stats come out to you, 3-4 times a day for all of your teams, and they're broken down into, columns and rows for each individual sales rep, and you've got your appointments, you've got your, your number of talk time, and being able to monitor that allows you to kind of bring it back to the basics, right? Because you always need to know the difference between, do we have a friction point with the basics where we're just not making enough calls? Or do we have a friction point where we are making the calls, we're not connecting with enough people, where we might want to change a region or change a territory they're calling? Or maybe we are getting enough people on the phone, we just don't have the right sound bites, right? I feel as though a lot of team leads who are managing sales management, or who are in the sales management role, kind of miss the mark when it comes to KPIs.
Yeah, and again, kind of monitoring the down chain a little bit, making sure that your managers, your whether that be a regional manager or whoever it is monitoring that team, is that they're doing their due diligence in monitoring those KPIs and training them on what to look for, training them on what are the red flags, well, what areas and what those red flags can indicate, because sometimes it's an easy fix on a red flag, and sometimes it's not such an easy fix, and then it's figuring out, okay, what to look for. Now that we've identified a red flag, let's try to identify what aspect of it is causing the red flag, and then address it quickly so that we can get that resolved and get that rep where they need to be.
Cool. So I'm a new team lead. I'm super excited about, I've been super successful as an individual salesman, and now I'm looking to kind of grow my downline and start to build a team. What advice can you give me?
One, listen to your team. I mean, I think that's one of the big things is listen to your team, listen to what they have to say, as far as they're going to tell you whether they're having struggles or what areas that they're going to need help in. And then being able to not only listen to them, but to help them along so that they do get where they need to be, and really be active with your team. I think a lot of times with with our managers that are handling a team of sales reps, is they're not as hands-on as I think that they should be. I think what ends up happening is they feel that, okay, well, they're going to do their job, I'll do my job, and then, if they need me, they'll come see me. In a lot of cases, that's not the case. They don't seek out your help. You have to be proactive, and you have to look to help them. And I think that the big with really listening to what their reps are doing, whether that's on the phone or talking to them individually, and assessing, where there might be friction points and where they can help them. And that goes from even, and I mean, I have not had much experience working with any veteran reps. We're getting more with South Africa now. They've been doing it for quite some time. But everybody can show improvement, whether that's a seasoned veteran or that's somebody that is just, or somebody that's just getting started. There's all levels of improvement. And that could be from refining your craft to maybe a new way to reach out to new prospects. Whatever it may be, there's always ways to improve. And it's a manager's job to make sure that we're sharing as much as we can with our reps to maximize all those efforts.
That's another important topic that I don't think we've touched up on, is innovation, and as a manager, it's your responsibility to be able to come up with new ways that you can find additional production from your downline, right? So what would be an example of, let's say, a friction point that you might have had with your downline, and how did you come up with the solution that allowed you to overcome that?
That's a good question. We had an issue. I'm trying to think, as far as a specific arena, but out in South Africa, we had a little bit of a friction point with, because we were growing organically and getting our getting appointments. We were strictly relying upon cold calling at the time, and trying to come up with a better solution as to how are we going to gain more appointments. And because the managers in place weren't really privy to what we were doing in the United States, as far as some text blasting and how we accommodate with certain email blasting, was to integrate that so that they could be reaching out to agents in a little bit more of a systematic way of doing it through our CRM with with the existing prospects that we have in our CRM. There's ways to reach out to them, and I don't think that they were privy to it. So it was really educating them on different ways to reach out to prospects, as opposed to the traditional just reaching out and cold calling different agents. So implementing that new way of doing it, it also increased the amount of appointments, and in turn the amount of presentations, and with that came sales. And I think that ways to reach out, and that just happened to be one of the ones that we implemented.
Yeah, I remember in South Africa, one of the biggest friction points we were having was that total, complete difference of culture and not understanding the real estate market. And what I think really changed and really shifted the dynamic of the success that we had in South Africa was, the training that we had to implement for just words, technical words of understanding the difference between a listing appointment and what happens at the listing appointment, and going to what is a CMA and what value does that bring when a real estate agent, when an agent, a prospect of yours that you're going to be pitching. I mean, not understanding their lingo and the words and what they say and how they say and the mindset they have, I think was something for us that we never would have known until we actually got there. And it was interesting to see the change in dynamic and as soon as we started and implemented that section in the training, really, I think helped us get to the next level of bringing the trainees in with that knowledge and having that knowledge, rather than having to train it during training, they've already kind of come into it. And I thought that was a pretty cool change that you made when we did come into South Africa.
Yeah, I think that, and also educating them on what the agent goes through. Really getting to understand the friction points for an agent, and where and whether that be from the challenges that they face with gaining new business to frictions that they've had with other platforms and things like that, and to educate them on that so that they have some understanding and empathy for an agent, because coming from South Africa, it's hard for them to put themselves in the shoes of an agent, as opposed to in say Irvine or here in Dallas, where they can somewhat understand what an agent must be going through. Where in South Africa, it was really a challenge for them. So it was really kind of educating them on that, so that they can put themselves in that agent's shoes and be empathetic to what they're going through and what they're struggling with.
Yeah, I mean, one thing we didn't even touch up on and maybe we'll do it in a future video, are the sales techniques that we train in training, and that's something that I think that a lot of team leads. Actually, last week, and I think we already published the YouTube video, but I had Lisa Bingley on. She's one of our team enterprises that came on, and she's got 50 agents on the platform, and she's rocking it. One of the things she does is she actually goes through an entire series of sales coaching and sales techniques, attention, interest, decision, action, always be closing, feel, felt, found, acknowledge, repeat, move on, right? All those basic, you have to build trust in you, the product, the company, right? Those are all things that we touch on. I don't think there's enough implementation on that when it comes to sales. I mean, you get the AIDA, they always be closing, right? You get that from the Glenn Ross, that movie, right? But I think there's so much value to that most team leads do not implement with it's got to be continuous, in my opinion. It's not like a one-time thing.
Yeah, it's easy for people to slip back into maybe their way of doing it, and really there is a right and a wrong way in most cases. And I think that if we aren't constantly monitoring that, it's very easy for somebody to fall back into kind of how they would normally do it. And if they haven't been trained properly or had that ingrained with, again, terminology, how you're using things, acknowledge, repeat, move on in some cases is the right approach, and being able to understand that, and also too, it's taking it's understanding and really training them when it comes to sales. And I think this goes for almost any sales out there, except for maybe some of these real fast retail type sales. But really, If you take the approach of really listening and asking and inquiring what your agent is going through and understanding their needs. And I think that's the one thing that I really train my teams on, whether it's in South Africa or it's here in Dallas, is really understanding the need of the agent and then trying to find out and figure out very quickly as you're kind of presenting the product, how is our product going to help them? What aspect of it is going to be the most advantageous for them? It could be as simple as this person has never really, they don't manage themselves very well, and our CRM could be a big benefit to them. It could be that it's as simple as they just need to be put in front of more people, and we can provide that. Whatever aspect it is that they're struggling with, we usually have a solution. And it's really being able to share the solution with the agent, because a lot of times it's hard for them to just visualize it. Sometimes it needs to be presented, and if it's presented in the right form, and they can see the value of it, it's a lot easier for them to say, yeah, this is the right platform for me. And I think that, and that goes for almost any sales out there whether that be business to business or in our case, working with different agents. It's really more about sharing the advantages that we have and how we can relieve any friction points and what potential they have with whatever it is that you're putting out there.
Awesome. Well, we're coming to a close on our time, and I know you got to get back there, and I appreciate you spending the time with us today. Again, Toby, thank you so much. Your time is extremely valuable, and I appreciate you taking the time to speak with me. Any last words on your side?
My pleasure, Danny. For me, it's been a pleasure working with SetSchedule and just looking to continue to grow. And in my role as business development is to continue the company to grow and move forward. But yeah, thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Well, Toby, thanks again. And for those of you who joined us, thank you for watching, and we'll see you on the next one.